What you end up with next is your front axle shafts and CV assembly. This is from the driver's side. It's got a long shaft. The one from the passenger side, don't mind the dirt, is significantly shorter. So when you get up here, all these are going to be connected, and it's going to be kind of a pain to get it off. But good news for me, I'm replacing them anyway, throwing the Ashcroft ones in there. What you got to be mindful of is this dust shield right here. This whole piece. It looks kind of like a washer with a sleeve attached to it. So what you're going to do is there's a clamp holding on the boot for the CV. I don't have any tin snips, so I used a grinder. And I cut it off, cut the bulge of it off, and then it just slips off, and you can discard it. At that point, I'm trying not to kill myself here since it's already disconnected. At that point, you're simply going to hold on to the half shaft with one hand, take that dead blow hammer with your other hand, and give the CV a couple smacks. And it should pop right off. And I'm changing out CVs so I can discard this one. Before you take that dust boot off, you need to lay each axle haft, your old one and your new one, side by side, and you need to mark where this boot goes. And make sure you've got them facing the right way. You can see there's a bulge right here in the axle shaft, and there's a cutout ring on this end. This is the CV side of things. So your boot needs to go on thusly. Now what you're going to do, best case scenario is you have a press so you can press this guy off. I don't live in a best case scenario, so what I did, I took a 2x4 with a 1.5 inch bore, bored a hole through it, and then all I did was I set it somewhere stable, dropped it through. Now you'll see this one was a little loose because I didn't push it all the way back on for the demonstration, but normally you'd have to set it in there and take that dead blow hammer again and just push that axle shaft through. And it takes I think it took me 2 good smacks and it fell all the way through. So what we've got here is a nice new Ashcroft half shaft, and we're in the process of putting the new flange back on. Now the flange fits just as snugly on this half shaft as it did on the old one. So what I've done is using the same wood jig that we had before, 1.5 inch hole in the middle of it. Slide the flange up to where it gets snug. Now what you're going to do, just rest it in the hole. Take a nice soft hammer. This is a 1 ounce rubber mallet. Got it from AutoZone. It's non-marring. It's not going to mess up the half shaft as I'm doing this. It's really important. You don't want this to mushroom and not be able to get the CV joint on later. So all I'm going to do is, with a series of successive taps, I'm just going to give it a smack. Notice every time I smack it, I'm allowing gravity to get everything recentered again, so I'm not trying to smack at an angle on there. So start hitting it while it's sitting at an angle, you might deform the flange and it won't fit right, and then you'll have more problems to deal with. In the event that that happens and your flange somehow is so loose that your half shaft slides right through it, what Justin from Lucky 8 and I have come out with is, and it was with the input from one of the members of his team, I want to say it was Dave, credits due, I wish I remembered the name a little better, is we took an awl and we made 4 marks at 90 degrees from each other all the way around the base of that flange. And what we did is we coated that bulge part, the flared out part of the half shaft, with high temperature RTV, and we slid it into place from there. And once again, it took a little bit of smacking, but not as much as it should have, because the flange for some reason was the wrong size. So if you run into a problem, that's one way to do it. You don't have to worry too much about these flanges holding real snug on there, because there's nothing pushing against them. So you want to use something to secure it, like we did with the awl and the RTV, but you don't have to worry about trying to tack weld it in place, which is my first. We've got our nice new Ashcroft half shaft assembled with the flange on it now. And you'll notice along the CV side there's a little ring cut out of it. Well, in your bag of goodies that Lucky 8 sends with the heavy-duty Ashcroft kit, there are these little C-clips. One of the C-clips will fit right in there. The other one, of course, is for the other side. Then you've got 2 more clips in there and a dust boot. You've got a small clip and a large clip for your boot, and you got the boot itself. You've got your CV joint. Before you put the CV on, a couple things to take into consideration. One, all this part in here needs to be packed by hand with grease. 2, do not, for any reason, assemble these parts outside of the vehicle, because once you do, the CV is going to lock in place on there and you're not going to be able to get it off. And when this goes together, the order in which you're going to do it is you're going to slide the half shaft into the truck, you're going to put the boot over the half shaft, and you're going to slide the CV onto the boot. So give me a minute here. I'm going to get everything all greased up and ready to go, and we'll go into the last part of it. Alright, so here we are, and I've got the half shaft. I've already got the little C-clip installed. I've got the dust shield on here, and it's sitting in my little jig. I'm doing this for stability because when you go to put this boot on, it's a real pain in the ass. So I found what works best for me is to take the boot, get it centered on there, push it on. It'll want to invert on you. Go ahead and let it invert just a little bit, because now it'll slide on there. Take it down a ways, pull it up, and voila, it's installed facing the direction you want now. And work it back down to where I want it now. Alright, so if you live in a world with limited tools like I do, you might not have the tool to crimp these fancy hose clamps that Justin provides with the heavy-duty axles. There is a solution, but you gotta be smart about it. Go down to AutoZone, get yourself some of those regular screw type clamps. But if I can get this guy to turn, we'll see. The clearance is a little tighter than you can afford. So the trick is to very carefully shave down the edge of the screw and the part where the screw first meets it. Don't need to shave down the whole thing, just that small little bit. And you'll see it passes through now. It's not much clearance, but it's got about a 1/16 of an inch or so. And that's enough for me.